Welcome back to Feminine Fortune. Today is the third episode in a series of episodes called The Principles of Feminine Selling, where I'm diving deeper into the main principles of how to sell the feminine way, no matter what type of sales you're in. So if you haven't listened to the first and second principles yet, definitely go back and listen to those and then come back to this one. Today's principle is the 3 types of sales integrity. When you understand the 3 types of sales integrity, it becomes so freaking easy to see why things aren't working. Like if you're receiving objections or low engagement, and then you can kind of go through what I'm going to teach you today. And then you can easily and quickly adjust course and pivot to suddenly be able to avoid objections, increase engagement, etc. So credit where credit is due. I learned this model from my mentor, who has been coaching executives and sales teams for 45 years. So she mostly only works with execs and celebrities and corporate. So she gave me full permission to go out into the world and teach this to you. And I do want to say, because the word integrity can often be like misinterpreted and it has layers of just like ickiness on it. It can be interpreted in the wrong way, like making like wrong making, shaming, this whole like right, wrong, blame energy. So I just want to invite you to think about it a little bit differently. It's really just a word that indicates energy. It's a word that indicates alignment. Okay. So there's no need for shame, right, wrong, anything like that. It's just a word that indicates if everything is lining up to your values. Is it truing up to your vision? Is it fitting with how you desire to design and live your life? Okay. So that's what integrity is. So we're going to start with physical integrity. This is the first of the 3 types of sales integrity. Physical integrity. This is like the how. Okay. So this is sending the emails, making the phone calls, doing the webinars, going to the events, doing the things. Very simple. This is actually where most people start and then stop. Most sales coaches out there are only teaching you the physical integrity. They're giving you the scripts. They're giving you the tactics. And all of those things are important. I'm not discounting them. It's just that it's not the only element here. And this is why a lot of people get very frustrated and get very stuck, because there's 2 other invisible forces at play, 2 other types of sales integrity, and nobody else is addressing them. And the people aren't doing the things that the people are doing all the things. The people are doing all the things that they're being coached to do. And then they're like, why isn't this working? And you're about to find out why. So the second element of sales integrity is spiritual integrity. So this is like scale of 1 to 10, you have to be at least an 8. Do you believe in what you're selling? Do you believe in yourself? And if you don't believe in what you're selling, if you don't believe in yourself, why should they? Why should your prospect? It doesn't work that way. It starts with you. So if you're like listening to this now and you check in with yourself and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm definitely below an 8 out of 10, then the work becomes you either get behind it, meaning get behind your product, get behind your service, get behind what you're selling, get yourself to a place of being able to sell it to where it's like literally the vehicle to get your prospect to where they want to go, or you get to go sell something else or do something else entirely. And that might sound kind of blunt, but you're wasting your time if you aren't able to get yourself to at least an 8 out of 10 when it comes to spiritual integrity. And it's so funny. There was a time way back when I was selling for somebody else, and I was just pretty much doing sales all day. I was doing like 8 hours of sales calls a day, just like inbound leads and like talking to the people and talking about their dreams. And that was awesome. But there comes a point, especially if you're doing sales the way I was doing it at the time, which was, this is so long ago. This was like way at the beginning of my sales journey. I didn't know anything about any of these principles that I'm teaching you in this Principles of Feminine Selling series. I was just doing the thing, sort of like I was just doing the physical integrity, just doing the thing, talking to the people. And I was like 4 months into 8 hours a day, 6 days a week of doing sales. Some days, some weeks, 7 days a week. And there was a Saturday. I live in San Diego and it's so beautiful out here, but there was one day it was like extra beautiful. And I really just wanted to lay by the pool and relax and take a freaking break. Quite honestly, that was my inner dialogue. And that Saturday I had 8 sales calls scheduled. You know what happened? First person, no show. Second person, cancel. Third person, reschedule. Fourth person, no show. No show, no show, no show, no show. All 8 calls canceled, no showed, or rescheduled. 8 calls. That's not a coincidence. I can tell you right now, 8 calls in one day, all of them canceling, no showing, or rescheduling. That is not a coincidence. That's because my spiritual integrity was so off that day. I was so like, I'm over this. I'm done. I was not in integrity with showing up for and serving the people that I generated an outcome. I created that all the calls canceled for the day. Now, looking back on that, and I think about the person that I was selling for and how like annoying that is to be the person who I was doing the sales for, and how like leads cost money. You know what I'm saying? Like marketing takes effort. It costs money. Like we never want to waste leads, so to speak. And I'm glad I know what I know now, because, if I had gotten 3 calls into a day of no shows, I would have immediately checked myself. Hold on. Where's my integrity out? So what's your version of that? Is it like receiving objections and you don't know why? Is it like, one round of sales calls, I had like time objection after time objection after, I had like 5 time objections in a row. And it was because I had my own limiting belief about time that I needed to clear and work through. And then I made a sale again after that, right? So it always boils down to that. So that's spiritual integrity. And you always want to like check with that, check in with yourself, ideally before you start the calls, before you start working with the people, before you start talking to them. But definitely if things start to not work, or if you're not getting the numbers that you want to be getting, check in with your spiritual integrity. The third and final of the 3 types of sales integrity is emotional integrity. Okay. So if your spiritual integrity is in check and all feels good there, and of course you're doing all of the things and that feels good there, what you want to do next is check in with your physical body, with your space, with your mindset, with your day. Like, for example, did you have an altercation with your spouse or kids this morning? Do you feel kind of sick? Like, I went through a period of time where I really dealt with migraines. That's like an emotional integrity issue. If you're less than an 8 out of 10 in the area of emotional integrity, of how you feel, you're missing emotional integrity. And what happens if that's the case is no matter what you say, no matter what you do, you will not make a sale unless you are above an 8 out of 10. And if you do, maybe you do, and you're like, wait, no, I've definitely had days where I felt like really bad and I've made a sale. If you think about it, those sales were actually made more out of manipulation and like maybe not a manipulation of the person, but maybe like a manipulation of your energy. Maybe you like had to like pound like 4 coffees or right, like something like that, rather than a real authentic win-win healthy type of selling. Okay. Now, a lot of people, they're like, well, if I only worked on days that I felt really good, I mean, that's not professional. And so what I want to make clear is that this isn't about being perfect. This isn't about having your ducks in a row, nothing like that. This isn't about being perfect. It's about being honest. So for example, there was a period of time where I was working with a company, and in that period of time, and I was helping them with their sales. And in that period of time, my sister's horse died. He was my horse originally back when I was a kid. He's the type of breed of horse that like lives forever. Connemaras, if you're a horse person, they live like forever. And, he died relatively recently. And that time when he died was very, very sad because like he was my first horse, and he was actually the first kind of like pet, if you want to call it that I experienced death with. I'm very blessed in that I just haven't had that experience. And so that was like really, really, really sad for me. So one day I it was around that time frame, and I showed up to a meeting, and someone in the meeting who understands all of this context, which was cool. So she was like, "How are you?" And I was like, "I'm fine." And she knew what was happening with me. And she was like, "Really though?" And I was like, yeah, I'm here. I'm okay. And she was like, "Are you really okay? Or are you just being a hero right now?" At which point I broke down into tears, and I was like, "I'm being a hero." And I really was very much not fine. That's the type of thing that's out of emotional integrity. What emotional integrity is you can still show up. What ended up happening in that case was I just stepped away, took half an hour, cried my face off, and then came back and restored emotional integrity in the space, and then kept going. It's possible to still show up and do the things and allow yourself to just be sad and be honest about it. Like I was working, actually, even just yesterday, I was working with a sales team, and I was speaking with one of the sales team members, and her cat was going through some stuff. Like her cat was having some health problems, and it was really stressful, and she had some other stuff happening. And I said, "Look, what I don't want you to do is pretend like you're fine. Like you can still do the things, but be honest and real with me about how you're doing. That's all I ask." And she sent me a voice message and was almost like a word vomit of "I'm sad about this. I'm mad about this, and just authentic. And I was like, "Perfect. Thank you. Thank you for being honest with me. That's all I'm asking for." So I know we live in a world that kind of expects you to show up bright and shiny and everything is fine. So I get that this is kind of against the grain in a lot of contexts, but I think you'd be surprised that most people really respect you for you being authentic. And look, I'm not trying to say be a Debbie Downer all the time. You still get to be responsible and shift and be in the context of it's happening for you, not to you. But it's also don't pretend everything is fine when it's not. Just be authentic. Just be honest. That's all. I know that can be kind of a fine line, but it takes practice. Connect with yourself about how that looks for you. It's just a practice. It's like trying on a new coat. Sometimes it doesn't fit right away, and you have to kind of break it in and make it work for you. So that's emotional integrity. I was in the car with a friend of mine who is a successful influencer and also a sales coach. And we were driving, and she was sharing with me that she was selling into a retreat and having a really hard time selling into it. And it was so weird for her because in the past, this retreat sold so easily every time. But this time she kept getting objection after objection after objection, and was so confused because it was such an easy sale every time before. And the spots sold with quickly with minimal objections. And this time was completely not like that. And she was so confused. And I asked you all of the questions that I just asked you here. Do you have the physical integrity? Yes. Doing the promotions, all of that. Do you have the spiritual integrity? Like we talked about, do you have the emotional integrity? And she had the biggest aha moment, and she realized she secretly did not want to do the retreat, and she just hadn't admitted it to herself. So what that means is she was out of sales integrity. In that case, she was out of spiritual integrity. So we talked it through, and I invited her to make a decision about if she actually wanted to do the retreat or not within 24 hours, and to make a promise to not do any calls up until then. So I received a message from her, and she made a powerful decision that yes, she wanted to do it. And guess what happened? Suddenly her calls were super easy again, and she filled her retreat. It really is that simple. So when you understand the 3 types of sales integrity, it becomes really easy to see why things aren't working. Like if you're receiving no-shows or low webinar attendance, and then you can easily and quickly adjust course and pivot, and then suddenly be able to avoid no-shows, and then you'll have increased attendance, etc. So I want to throw it back to you and invite you to just start getting into the habit of checking in with yourself on each of these 3 areas. And I'll tell you what, when I learned this principle, it was like a life-changing revelation. So don't keep the goods to yourself. Share this with someone you care about who also has sales goals and dreams just like you. And if this episode made a difference for you, I do ask that you subscribe, and I appreciate you for that. And also make sure to go follow me on the socials for all the behind the scenes of my life and what I've got going on. And I will see you in the next episode of Feminine Fortune.